Welcome to me, where suspenseful, thrilling, and mysterious stories will draw you into a world where the lines between reality and fantasy seem to blur. When the night falls, when all the sounds gradually quiet down, leaving only your own heartbeat and breathing, that's when these stories begin. Tensions, unsolved mysteries, moments that will make you hold your breath in fear or curiosity, all are waiting for you ahead. Find a comfortable seat, dim the lights, and let this sound guide you on a journey that is not for the faint of heart. I want each of you to leave a comment sharing where you are in the world. And if you are enjoying the episodes, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to the channel now. Relax. Are you ready? If so, join me in the first story right now. Echoes in the Dark. Michelle Byers woke to the hum of the oxygen machine and the sterile white glow of hospital lights. She had survived the crash. Her husband, Daniel, had not. They told her she had been unconscious for days, and in those days, the world had stolen her sense of normalcy. Recovery was grueling. Her body ached, but her mind suffered more. The doctors diagnosed her with narcolepsy, an after effect of the trauma. She struggled to distinguish wakefulness from the strange visions that plagued her. But nothing prepared her for what came next. Chapter 1. Fractured Pieces. The house felt empty without Daniel. Michelle moved through the rooms like a ghost herself, touching the furniture, the framed photographs, the tiny details of a life that had once been whole. Every object felt sacred, preserved in time, but also hollow without him. Then the strange things began happening. The first time, she thought she was imagining it. She walked into the kitchen one morning to find Daniel's favorite coffee mug on the counter. It wasn't just there. It was filled exactly as he would have made it. 3 sugars, 2 splashes of cream. She froze. Her breath came in quick, shallow bursts. She reached out with a trembling hand and touched the ceramic. It was warm. Did I do this? She whispered to herself. She had no recollection of making the coffee. She dumped it in the sink, trying to push away the nagging thought clawing at the back of her mind. That night, she checked Daniel's drawer, the one where she had placed his watch, his wedding ring, his last belongings. The watch was gone. She searched frantically. Through the drawers, through the entire bedroom, the nightstand, the closet. Nothing. Lack of sleep, she muttered. That's all this is. But then the voicemails started. Chapter 2. Echoes of the Past. One evening, as she walked into the living room, the red light on the answering machine blinked. It was an old relic, something Daniel had insisted on keeping despite her protests about just using their cell phones. She pressed play. Hey, love. Just letting you know I'll be home late. Don't wait up. Her breath hitched. His voice, crisp and casual, like it always had been. Like he wasn't dead. Her legs buckled, and she collapsed onto the couch, pressing her hands to her mouth. She checked the timestamp. The message had been left yesterday. She deleted it. An error it had to be, but it happened again and again, every few nights. The same message, with slightly different wording. Sometimes it was just a simple, "Love you, see you soon." She played one for her friend Angela. Angela's face paled. "This is some sick joke. I swear, I'm not making this up." Angela reached for her hand. "Michelle, this isn't healthy. Maybe it's your condition. Your doctor said hallucinations are possible with narcolepsy." Michelle recoiled. "You think I'm imagining this?" Angela hesitated. "I think grief can do strange things. And you haven't been sleeping." Michelle didn't argue. What was there to say? She made an appointment with her doctor, who prescribed sleeping pills to help regulate her sleep cycles. Chapter 3. The Stranger in the Coffee Shop. For weeks, the house was quiet. No misplaced objects, no strange messages. It was almost as if, by sleeping more, she had sealed whatever crack had let the past bleed into the present. Then she saw him. She was at a small cafe downtown, sipping on chamomile tea, staring blankly at her phone. It was an overcast afternoon, a steady drizzle coating the streets outside in shimmering gray. The bell over the door jingled, and a figure stepped inside. Her breath stopped in her throat. Daniel, sitting at a table near the window, laughing, his eyes crinkling in that way they always had. A woman sat across from him, stirring her coffee. Michelle's heart pounded as she stood, nearly knocking over her cup. She stumbled toward the door, her vision tunneling. Outside, the streets were a mess of honking cars, sloshing tires, and blurred figures. She tried to cross, barely noticing the screech of brakes and a driver shouting at her as she nearly stepped in front of a cab. By the time she made it to the other side, Daniel was gone. She pressed her hands to the cafe window, her breath fogging up the glass. No, 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 no. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone and called Angela. "He's alive," she gasped. "Angela, I swear to God, I just saw him." Angela's voice was strained. "Michelle, that's impossible. I saw him," she screamed, drawing the attention of pedestrians. She turned, scanning the street wildly. No sign of him. Chapter 4. The Cracks in Reality. When she got home, the silence of the house felt like it was pressing down on her. She sat on the couch, her hands gripping her knees. Had she really seen Daniel? Was she losing her grip on reality? As exhaustion pulled at her, she drifted into a restless sleep. And then a sound, footsteps, familiar, slow. Moving toward the bedroom, her heart pounded as she forced herself up. The house was dark, the air thick with something unspoken. She crept toward the bedroom, every step feeling heavier than the last. She pushed open the door. Nothing. Her breath came in ragged gobs. She turned on the light. The room was empty. Just her mind playing tricks again. She sat on the bed, tears burning her eyes. "What's happening to me?" Then her phone rang. She snatched it up, hands shaking. "Mom? Honey?" Her mother's voice was soft. "I just wanted to check on you. I'm not okay," Michelle whispered. "Mom, I saw him. I saw Daniel." Her mother hesitated. "Michelle, you know we talked about this before. You and Daniel discussed his wishes in case something happened. You don't remember?" A cold wave washed over her. "No, we never had that conversation." Her mother sighed. "And what about your trip to the lake house last summer? The one he planned?" The words stuck in her throat. "That never happened." "Did it?" Then she noticed something else. Her hands, they were different. The faint scar from childhood, gone. The calluses from her years of playing piano, missing. Her reflection in the bedroom mirror flickered for a second. An almost imperceptible glitch, as though the pixels themselves struggled to keep her image in place. Then the bedroom door creaked open. Footsteps, familiar, a shadow in the doorway. "Michelle," the voice whispered. Her pulse stilled. Her breath caught in her throat. She turned and saw herself standing there, watching. The world cracked apart. Darkness swallowed her whole. When Michelle awoke, the room looked the same, but wrong. The pictures on the wall were slightly different. Her wedding photo with Daniel now showed them standing in front of a place they had never been. The color of the curtains had changed. Her phone no longer recognized her face. She stumbled to the bathroom, flicked on the light, and gasped. The reflection stared back with blank eyes. Her face, similar, yet unfamiliar. Sharper jaw, eyes a shade too light, skin too smooth. The scar on her collarbone from the skiing accident years ago was gone. A mechanical voice echoed faintly from her phone behind her. "System error. Biometric mismatch. Please verify user identity." She backed away from the mirror, from the glass that shimmered like liquid for half a second, as if the world was re-rendering itself in real time. She opened drawers, desperate for something familiar, something hers. But the clothes weren't hers. The books on her shelf bore her name as the author, only she'd never written them. The covers depicted surreal scenes, cities made of bone, people with stitched smiles, hollow-eyed children staring up at crimson moons. She ran outside. The street was there, but so quiet. The sky above was bruised purple, the clouds tinged with red. No birds, no wind. Every person she passed moved too slowly, their limbs jerky, robotic. They didn't blink, didn't speak, didn't see her. Michelle walked in a daze, her breath fogging in the warm air. The newsstand still had papers, but the headlines made her stomach twist. Temporal leak worsens. Memory replacements imminent. Global consciousness sync delayed. Users report phantom lives. Version control glitch detected. Subject 487, M. Byers, flagged for recalibration. Subject: she turned to flee, but froze when she saw the cafe. The same cafe where she'd seen Daniel weeks ago. And there he was again, laughing, alive. Wrong. Sitting across from someone with her face. The other, Michelle, turned, and their eyes met. The world paused. A buzzing started low in her ears, rising to a high-pitched shriek. The people froze mid-step. The air shimmered. The other Michelle stood slowly and began to walk toward her. Michelle backed up, stumbling into a metal pole. A nearby screen flickered to life, displaying the symbol of an eye with fractals radiating outward. Then, a voice spoke from nowhere and everywhere. Welcome, Subject 487. Consciousness sync complete. Version displacement detected. Initiating purge. Michelle screamed, but there was no sound, only light. And then oblivion. Epilogue. Static. In a bright white room with no doors, Michelle sits at a desk. Her hands type furiously on a keyboard that glows with symbols she doesn't recognize. On the wall, a screen shows surveillance feeds. Dozens of herselves navigating fractured realities. Some crying, some lost, some laughing beside Daniel. A door finally opens behind her. A figure enters. It's her again. This time, dressed in clinical white, clipboard in hand. Her eyes are cold, unblinking. Reset failed. Clipboard Michelle says. They always fight it. Desk Michelle whispers. They remember too much. Clipboard. Michelle tilts her head. Try a deeper extraction next time. Desk. Michelle nods, tears streaking down her face. Which one is the real me? The clipboard falls to the floor. No answer. The light flickers. The room glitches. And somewhere, in another version of reality, a woman named Michelle Byers wakes up again. To the hum of an oxygen machine and the sterile white glow of hospital lights. Was it all a dream, or was this the dream? She doesn't know anymore, and maybe she never did. Shattered truths. In week 52, the little town already shimmered with the anticipation of festivities. Strings of twinkling lights adorned street corners, their glow reflected in the frosted windows of small houses. The air was somehow alive with the scent of candied almonds, cinnamon, and vanilla. Sweet bakeries waiting to be shared. Yet amidst this explosion of life and light, Henrik remained unmoved in his own house. Only now did he notice the splinters on the frames of the old windows. It irritated him. How could one have lived in a place for so long and never discover something as provocative as that? 30 years in the same house, married to a woman named Benta. She never had much interest in cleaning like most women her age had. Henrik looked up from the bed where he rested his body in the afternoon. Naps like these started to occur more often than before. Probably age or hell knows why. The door was open, and he could see the light from the lamp in the kitchen. Very faint, but just enough to see clearly. When was the last time he changed the light bulbs? Or maybe the last time he did that? Maybe 4 years ago? Or 6? Henrik got up and walked around the house for a moment until he saw the old plates. Small teacups were there too. They had gathered dust over time. Why did she even collect them when she didn't even polish them? Wasn't that something you do when you collect all sorts of crap? Henrik took his box with pills and swallowed a handful of them with lukewarm water, and then grabbed his cigarette box. As the flame flickered to life and touched the tip of his cigarette, the first inhale hit him with a rush of warmth, pulling him out of the heavy fog of his sadness. The bittersweet wave of nostalgia washed over him, carrying flashes of his younger years, when the world was a vast, untamed promise, each day unwritten and brimming with possibilities. Now, every movement was deliberate, every breath a reminder of the disease that gripped his body, unraveling him piece by piece. The cigarette trembled in his unsteady fingers, a cruel contrast to the steady, unbroken rhythm of his past, when his hands had been strong and his future limitless. Henrik looked up at the cupboard with the plates. He no longer spared them a glance, knowing they wouldn't remain in his house much longer. The small glass doors of the cupboard did not bother to open. "Come on!" He got angry and used all his strength to open the cupboard until it gave out. Glass bounced and flew all over the place, and a small piece flew into his face. A second later, a small cup fell, adding china to the glass artwork on the ground. "Well," said Henrik, "Bente will take care of that." For a minute, Henrik wondered where she might be. But then a sudden thought struck him. Probably anyone with self-respect would be willing to spend more quality time away from his miserable presence. Carefully, as much as he could, Henrik took the plates and cups and put them down in a cardboard box. He put on his jacket and shoved the keys in the pocket of his leather jacket. It has been a few years since he didn't drive, not that he didn't know how to. So he headed walking, went out to Red Cross shop, and handed the ladies at the counter the filled cardboard box without saying a word. Henrik stepped out into the street and saw that it was beginning to get dark. He gave a sigh of relief, as if that particular china was a burden that added more weight to his heavy enough life. It was past 3 in the afternoon, and the clouds were long and transparent. When was the last time he went out for a walk? Not recently, for sure. It was too unbearable to look at all these energetic people. Energetic enough to laugh and move around, with no rollators, and accompanied by themselves only. Each step now felt like a quiet triumph. The rhythm of his feet against the pavement was a soothing reminder that, despite the tremors and stiffness, Henrik was still moving forward, and this helped to refresh his mind. The crisp air brushed against his face, and for a moment, the simple act of walking became a victory over the weight of his condition. After about 15 minutes, Henrik walked in the dark until he saw a neon sign. He had forgotten his glasses at home, but the word bodega was big enough to read. He entered in the cozy, time-worn charm. Its low beams and dimly lit interior soaked with the stories of decades past. Henrik used to come more often, but the last time he had beer in the bodega was when his son turned 18 and the whole family celebrated. Henrik looked around to choose a spot. Faded photographs and vintage beer ads adorned the smoke-stained walls, while mismatched chairs and well-worn tables lent the space some hygge-lig, unpretentious air. A faint aroma of beer mingled with the occasional smell of fried food as locals leaned on the polished but scuffed wood counter, exchanging jokes over clinking glasses. Henrik felt strange. There was only a small group of people, and the whole room smelled of something naggingly recognizable. Henrik sat down next to a lone man. Both were silent. Only their bodies felt close enough to feel each other's hollowness. Jens could hear Kim's "In a Little While" playing and turned to the guy for some small talk. Aren't pleasantries often a way to save ourselves from being engulfed by awkward solitude? The man looked much younger. Henrik saw him drinking from a small porcelain cup, like the ones he just left off earlier. Funny, Henrik thought, and forced his eyes to focus more. He noted he wasn't a man at all. He was a teenage boy with tears in his eyes. "Are you okay, my boy?" "What's going on?" Henrik asked. The boy didn't answer, but turned around, revealing a deep gash reaching from his left shoulder to his lower back. Henrik's eyes widened. The boy stopped smiling, and his somber look turned into a gunta, empty expression. He collapsed to the ground with a heavy thud. Henrik noticed that the boy had a guas on the inside of his jacket. He grabbed it abruptly, without anyone noticing. Henrik didn't have his phone with him, so he asked one of the people in the bar to call the police and pointed to the body. When Henrik opened the door, the wind blew in his face. Rain poured in, and the weather was completely different from just a couple of minutes ago. The sky was entirely black, and the sounds of screams were coming from the distance. Henrik was following the wails, not actually sure where he was heading to. He had almost reached home when he saw two individuals in front of his neighbor's house. They looked like thieves, and when he fixed his gaze, He saw they had weapons in their hands and looked dangerous. They were murderers. Henrik stepped back and was about to hide behind a large willow tree when they noticed him. Henrik took the boy's gun and readied to fire. To his surprise, the gun was empty, and he panicked. Henrik could hear his own snorting breath over the wind. He couldn't run. He couldn't hide. So he just sat quietly on the ground, putting the gun down in despair. Henrik saw a red car driving up the dirt road. It stopped so suddenly that it skidded and slid into the nearby ditch. Henrik felt the weight of his decisions and his fractured memories pressing down on him. His life had been a blur of rancor, loneliness, and regret. But now it was ending in chaos while the sirens grew louder and armed men scooted closer. The middle-aged woman who came with the red car, Bente, rushed toward Henrik, screaming at the officers who found an unarmed ill man announced missing. "You're late," Henrik muttered, closing his eyes and lying on the grass. But now it seemed she didn't hear him. He got lost twice last week. Again, without the phone, everything started to fall apart after we lost our young love, uttered Bente through tears while they were lifting Henrik and heading to the ambulance. The two people, his neighbors, helped Bente to collect a few scattered pieces of china, and no one knew why Henrik had a porcelain loop handle around his ring finger. The cemetery's keeper. There once was a man, and he used to be known as the cemetery's keeper. He would wash the stones and make the graves intact with new paint jobs and flowers. He would be seen sitting down talking to the stones. While he ate his lunch, it was a different stone each day. Everybody thought he was creepy. He wore black every day, like he was about to attend a funeral. A full suit and tie. Even in the summer, he would watch everyone from afar that went past, especially those who came in. He would hide near the trees and light up a cigarette. You could hear him choke from a mile away. That's how everyone knew he was there. The coughing. He helped the community by doing his job and keeping it clean, but he would never get recognized for it. It was a hard job. Nobody knew his family. They knew he was watching them. He hung around the graveyard at night to stop the youngsters from vandalizing the stones. But he had to be careful, as they were loud and in groups, and could possibly be holding a weapon. He would just scrub it off when they left. Until one day, some youngish kids came by and smashed up all the gravestones and tried to dig to find the coffins and the bodies inside. The next day, he was found dead, lying among the gravestones, with his head in a bucket of water, what he was cleaning with. Whoever it was drowned him, and they had a purpose. There was a rumor going around saying that he hurt some children, but that was a lie. I'm Detective Susan Baker, and I took over this case. Two things were obvious, one being the fact that this was foul play. The other, I think I know who did it, and I needed him to confess. This fella I speak of has just gotten out of prison for murdering someone 5 years ago. He only got 5 bloody years. Pathetic from the justice system's side. But nobody showed up at court for him. His record was clean. He had never done a bad thing in his entire life. He had strangle marks around his neck. When I found him, he was cold. He had been beaten before he drowned. The coroner said he was definitely strangled to death. He had knife marks on his rib cages and a big one marked on his throat. Whoever killed him really wanted him to die. They collected the DNA and matched it with the strangle marks. Whoever it may have been left dirty scratch marks. With the gunk left under their nails, we found a match, just who I thought it was. The man has just gotten out of jail, and he got bail to his mother's house. He had nowhere else to go. He had a big group of friends that committed crime all over the area. The crime rate was bad without them. Hopefully, my partner, Sir John, and I could take down who did it today. It was going to be a long one, which meant that we wouldn't be with our families today, which was Christmas Eve. I wasn't expecting that. The boss said we could go, but once again, we had to protect the city. I put up so many Christians' lights this year, hoping to not have them vandalized too. During the festive holidays, the people in my area too would go absolutely nuts, screaming, fighting, punching on doing drugs, hard drugs, might I add, drug dealers on each corner. The lowest act was burning someone's house down on Christmas Eve, leaving them with nothing. In this area, this has unfortunately happened on a regular basis, due to mainly domestic violence or vandalism, the occasional break-in. I've gotten a few bravery awards due to taking down a man with a gun and saving someone from committing suicide. My partner is my mentor. He is a good bloke, tough, well-built. It was time to search for more clues. Maybe we will find footprints or something leading to the murder area. As we arrived in the darkness, we heard more youngsters roaming about and obviously destroying the headstones. We turned our flashlights on and pulled out our badges. They were horrified, stopped in their tracks. "We need the names of all of you. Now," my partner said with a scary tone. About an hour later, we had all their names. They were finally going to be charged with vandalism. Each kid had to pay for the damage that they did with their protective parents. Each of them got a fine of $1,000. Each made payment plans. I wondered who would take over the graveyard now, or would they just let it overgrow? The graveyard overgrown. It had been about a month since he passed away. The stones were dirty, vines growing in every direction. We interrogated the fella that I thought it was, but he would not confess, even though we found his DNA on the man's neck. He said the old man kissed me, and I put my hands on his throat, but he didn't die. Last time I saw him, he was alive. I didn't kill him. I knew that was a lie, because the old man didn't go near anybody, because they could be armed with a weapon. We found a couple of footprints. We matched it with the same shoes, but he still would not confess, even after a violent interrogation. We showed him pictures of the old man's crime scene. He looked away. We made sure that we got a warrant out for his arrest. We found the murder weapon after a big search in the creek. He had dumped it in there. He had no remorse. He had his poker face on. He was put in a cell for attempted murder up until his court hearing. Banshee. The soft cushions of the leather couch cradled Kim's sweaty body. Her vision was fuzzy and dark, like looking through smudged sunglasses. She blinked rapidly, hoping to remedy her skewed sight. Then she heard voices, male and female. Yes, I did call 911. She needs to get better mascara. There's no way that was mascara. Kim recognized those voices. She must be on the couch in her office. But why? Well, what could it have been? Never heard anyone scream like that before. I know. It was unnatural. She must have had some kind of seizure. Yeah, it seemed her dog sensed it was going to happen. Oh, definitely. Don't worry, Kim. I'll take care of Groot while you're at the hospital. You won't believe this, but I had my first hot flash last night. It was so disgusting. Kim wasn't sure if that was TMI, but she was the broker and founder of this real estate firm, so she had the right to say whatever in the hell she wanted. However, she did find it uncomfortable to talk about. She just couldn't stop thinking about last night's sweat fest. When did you have your last period? Shelley asked. Kim scanned the faces of the 12-member team of real estate agents gathered at the conference table. Mostly men. Men didn't want to talk about this crap. Kim had never felt comfortable talking about female plumbing issues either. And this was not the time, nor the place, nor the company to speak of such things. She shouldn't have started this conversation. Just not thinking clearly today. Moving on. Jeffrey, you have a new listing? Subject changed. Every day was bring your dog to work day. Kim brought Groot, a 2-year-old male Wheaton Terrier. Other team members brought their dogs as well, and all the canines got along. During the Monday meeting, Groot lay in his bed behind Kim's chair at the head of the table. Suddenly, he started whining, high-pitched and annoying. All conversation stopped. Groot went to Kim and pawed at her lap, still whining. She rubbed his head. What is it? What's... Kim sucked in a loud breath, stood straight up, as if her spine had instantly become a metal rod. Then she started a low, guttural growl. She began to drool, long strands of saliva slinking from the corners of her mouth. People gasped. Kim faced the table, placed her hands on it, and crawled on top. She sat on her heels, stretched her torso and arms forward, and pointed at Jeffrey, who was seated at the other end of the table. Her index fingers were side by side, lips parted, teeth gnashing. Kim let out a shriek that had the agents covering their ears. Thick, black tears oozed from her eyes, made mad streaks down her ruddy cheeks, and dribbled onto the table like globs of old motor oil. All the dogs in the building barked. Most of the agents sped from the room. Jeffrey plastered himself against the wall behind his seat and stared at Kim, his eyes and mouth wide open. The shriek lasted for at least 60 seconds. Kim collapsed onto the table. At the hospital, Kim was informed that her scans were clear. The results from the cultures of the tears would take a few days to come back. The doctor had no answers for her regarding the shriek. She stayed overnight and then went home at 10:25 a.m. Kim had just put on pajamas and was ready to relax when she received a phone call from Shelley, one that put her in a fetal position. Heading south on I-85 in his very expensive, high-performance BMW, Jeffrey was breaking the speed limit, 10 miles over. It was no big deal, but it was raining. He was in the fast lane, as always. He rarely got to drive his car the way he wanted. It could go from 0-60 in under 3 seconds. Jeffrey eyed the long stretch of asphalt ahead of him and listened to Hush by Deep Purple, as loud as the car's sound system would allow. He was about to gun it when he saw a sedan slide from the northbound lane, coast through the grassy median, and head straight for him. Shit! Jeffrey stepped on the gas. The sliding car missed him, but wrecked into the truck behind him. Looking in his rearview mirror at the carnage of the colliding metal and glass, Jeffrey yelled, "Holy hell!" That's when he started to lose control of his vehicle, zigzagging, the road water washing up onto his windows from the right and the left. And then everything in Jeffrey's world stopped. At home, Kim sat on her sofa, weeping. Her father sat beside her, hugging her shoulders. "I can't believe this." "I know," said Marcus. Then he let out a hefty sigh. "I have something to tell you." "What?" "It's about your mother." Kim scowled at her father. They never talked about her mother. "It's about her death." "You want to talk about that now?" "Yes. It relates to all you're going through." "What? How?" Marcus covered his eyes with his hand. "How do I put this? Your mother suffered from the same affliction you're suffering from now." He looked directly at her. The shriek, the black tears. "You're what is known as a banshee." Kim stared at him as if he had grown another head. "That's not funny, Dad. I'm totally serious. Banshees shriek at people who are about to die. It's why your mother killed herself." She took a good, long look at his aged, hard-lined face. He wasn't lying. She should be mad that he hadn't told her this long ago. She wasn't. Couldn't be. She was too numb and too tired to feel anger toward him. Be prepared. People at work will stare at you. They'll talk about you, wonder things about you, even be afraid of you. Is that what happened to Mom? Yes, she began to cry again. I'm so sorry, honey. After 10 minutes of weeping, Kim drank the hot tea her father had made. Groot went to her and sat beside her on the couch, which reminded her, Dad, Groot whined at me just before it happened. Yeah, nearby animals can sense the episodes before they happen. Don't know why. I've done a lot of research, but haven't determined why that happens. What all have you discovered in your research? Well, that only women are banshees, that it starts at menopause, that you'll be a banshee until you die. Fantastic. Didn't you know this was going to happen to me? We hoped it wouldn't. Your mother's mother said it might skip a generation. Hey, well, guess what? She sipped her tea. You should have warned me. I'm so very sorry. Marcus kissed his daughter's forehead. But seriously, what good would that have done? Kim thought about that. Her only response to his question was a shrug. Kim stood in the bathroom, blowing her nose. Her father had left a few minutes ago. She was still struggling to process all he had told her, and she was seriously thinking of retiring to avoid everyone at work. She could do it. Then there was Jeffrey to think about. His funeral. Damn it. This was all too much. She had worked so hard to get to where she was in life. A multi-millionaire at age 30. One of the premier real estate brokers in Greenville, South Carolina. Now she was... what? Some kind of supernatural being? Seriously? She had so many things she still wanted to do with her career, her personal life, and perhaps with Jeffrey. Had her mother experienced similar disappointments? Kim began to cry again, but then Groot came into the bathroom and started whining. That high-pitched, annoying whine. And he pawed at her. What the hell? Kim looked at herself in the mirror. Big eyes, gritted teeth, drooling. Then the clear tears became thick and black. She pointed at herself. I wasn't expecting that. And then the shriek. Memory of the future. Ed is looking down the cliff, watching the waves crashing on the beach. Same place he was when his baby brother went missing. His parents never spoke of it, like he never had a sibling. It is a summer night. Goes inside for dinner. No one says a word, same as usual. Ed does the dishes. His dad buries himself on the couch in front of the TV, and Mom goes to her room. Another boring evening at the Wallaces. Maybe all the answers to all of our questions are out there in the dark forest. Ed pushes aside a twig from a tree with his left hand to look ahead. It is so dark. He knows he is naked. Why would he? He wonders. It is freezing. Now he is elsewhere, in front of a shed. On the other side, he simply knows there are 3 beings. which could passed off as triplets, all looking the same, except the one in the middle seems to be a female. They are facing the wall that takes to the woods. Their oval heads are almost a triangle, with a pointy chin. The nipples of the both males have a pyramidal shape. The females are round. The three of them appear to be wearing a silvery overall, orange latex gloves up to their elbows, some work boots. Only those aren't brown or black, but in the same silvery tone. Or are they? Their actual feet. They got only 2 toes, the eyes completely white, no pupils or lids, and pointy ears, like they were elves from a fairy tale. They seem to albinos, the skin so white. They are staring at Ed like the shed was gone. He can also see them clearly. The walls appear invisible. Ed doesn't know what to do. No matter, though, because he suddenly realizes even if he wanted to move or scream or run, he couldn't. They wouldn't let him. Ed is back in bed. Was it a dream? Whatever it was, he can tell inside that shed there was a time machine. A young boy went there every night to build it, so he could get back the girl that ditched him. He was too. A lone one. Ed goes to school like it's any other day. Does not pay attention in classes. He looks out the window and sees the boy that built the time machine. He is a mysterious one, skipping stones at some lake. Back home, Ed is sitting on the grass, next to the cliff, still with those 3 beings on his mind. He wonders who they were and where. Where did they come from and why? What could they possibly want with him? Ed takes a shower, same as every afternoon. After he is done with his homework, and before they have dinner, he is finished cleaning up, and water is running down his body. He goes to open the curtain to get out, but he opens some kind of vortex. He can see a galaxy light years away. In the middle, a throne with a Nordic woman with her child in her arms. As soon as he looks into the woman's eyes, he's back in his bathroom, all silent at the table, barely looks at his plate during dinner, let alone touching his food. His parents eat and leave, as usual. His thoughts still on that woman, and the throne, and those 3 beings he saw the other night. Once on his bed, pulls the sheets up to cover his body, and something gets his attention. There is a huge man on the corner, both hands hugging his knees, showing some concern on his face. Wearing a robe and sandals, must be at least 13 feet tall. Turns around and looks into Ed's eyes. Ed wonders what troubles the giant. The boy that built the time machine pops into both their heads, or into the man's. But Ed can see it clearly, as if he himself was seeing the boy, carrying a box with tools, walking to the shed every night. He must have really loved that girl. Ed is certain he wasn't dreaming when he saw the giant. and neither is he now. The boy has been going to the cemetery in the middle of the night for several weeks, desecrating more than a few graves. Now he's put together a body from parts of some of the corpses he's dug up. And next to the body, he's put a photo of the girl who left him, in the hopes that some part of her essence will enter the empty vessel. As some modern Frankenstein, he intends to give life to the body by means of electricity. Ed sees himself pulling the lever, but before he can find out if it worked, if the body is alive, he appears to jump through time. Now Ed is in 1978, June 6th, almost the 7th, as he looks at his watch and it's 11:50 p.m. The date he sees in a page of a journal flying by, carried out by the wind. He is in a city destroyed by a nuclear war, which never happened. Not in this reality, anyway. Ed sees the boy jumping through time and space once again. What was once a bouquet of flowers rests next to a long-forgotten grave. That is all we can expect in life. When we go, our loved ones will mourn us and cry for some time, recalling memories with us, but not too long. They learn to move on and leave us behind, to forget. Ed just knows the boy was never born, not in this reality. The boy just wanted peace and kept himself from being born. There is no grave, no tomb, no resting place for the boy. He is now at peace, wherever he may be. From out of nowhere, a girl appears. As white as snow her skin is, dark as ebony her long hair. There is no exit for her. She's on the edge of the precipice, a man getting closer. No options left. To live or to be free, that's the end of the road for the girl. She jumps to her own demise, feeling like she cab fly for a few seconds, and then the sea. She turns into sea foam. She appears to be floating on the ocean, feeling but peace and quiet. Another man comes into the scene. He was on the beach and comes to the girl. He looks into her blue eyes. Suddenly, it is Ed looking into those eyes, and then it's the firmament and the cold space. It starts raining, and Ed can see the drops falling to floor, and the tombs, the cemetery again. The abandoned and long-forgotten grave's tombstone reads, Carola Duval. Was it all a dream? Is Ed wondering when he starts an astral travel? Feels himself leaving his body, only it's not him, but a boy he's seen before. Somewhere in dreams, perhaps. Ed sees the boy getting back in his body as three tall beings with elephant-like skin stand next to him. Those beings have rat-gray skin, huge black eyes, no iris or retina, just pupil, no nose, no mouth, oval heads. The boy covers his head with the sheets, hoping they will leave soon. Now Ed finds himself in his own room, his head covered, those beings next to him. Through the sheets, he can see blue lights and begins floating above his bed. And now he is the one hoping they leave. Ed wakes up a little dizzy and having no idea what that all was. When did they leave? Did they do something to him? He takes a shower, gets downstairs, and grabs a glass with orange juice and goes to school. Again, he pays no attention to his class or classmates. During lunch, sitting with his friends, they are all laughing and talking, and he's just gone. He remembers when the last pandemic happened. He dreamed of a guy meeting 3 shadowy figures. Never gave it much thought, but now he wonders if that was a dream at all. And is it somehow related to what he's been seeing in dreams? "Are you here?" asks his mom, when once again he hasn't touched his food. He's playing with his fork and some peas. He found himself staring at a girl in some Greek ruins. Ed goes to bed early. He is staring at the ceiling, not thinking of anything. He doesn't even notice when he falls asleep. Or is he? Through the corner of his right eye, he sees 3 green-skinned beings, 4 feet tall, tops. They were there a second before. Now, they're gone. It is 3:15 a.m. And he falls asleep once more. He is just a child, 4, 5 years old, playing in the park, his mom holding his baby brother's hand. Now his mom goes to the ice cream truck while he watches his brother. It is now late and dark, all 3 of them walking home. His dad is there, waiting for them. And those 3 eye beings in front of them, his baby brother, they take with them. And his parents never talked about him again, like he never existed. He didn't exist, not in this reality, anyway. The female being speaks, or rather, prints it on Ed's mind. They do not move their mouths. "Your brother has a bigger fate," speaks the being on the left. "How can you?" asks Ed inside his head. "We can see your thoughts," says the being on the right. "And you can see ours," adds the one on the left. "You had no sibling in this life. That's a memory of another reality," said the female. "And now he's here again, looking down the cliff, watching the waves crashing on the beach. Same place he was when his baby brother went missing. Or at least, that's what Ed would remember. Sayamontes. The musty dungeons. I thank the Lord for saving me from the dungeons. I was there for less than a day, caught up in the labyrinth. I became heartbroken at the sight of many tortured corpses. I prayed for my God to help me. How long must I stay here? Then I remembered I had absinthe, a gift, the perfect gift. I ingested the entire bottle, straight. I could not feel my face. I wanted to cry tears of relief and sadness. Oh, Sayamontes, will you truly be mine? My nipples hardened at the thought. I got goosebumps all over. I quickly became overwhelmed with sexuality. I touched myself here and there. It changed my life. I had never made myself feel so good. Completely intoxicated, I wept. Then, thank you, sweet Jesus. An angel appeared. Prepare yourself. Siamontes soon shall be yours. Go ahead and touch yourself, for once you are the ruler. You will be touched by many. It will be your duty to produce an heir. I did as instructed, and it felt great. I went to rinse off in the shower, and I heard voices in my head. She hates us straight men. She's openly expressed that she wants to fuck us with dildos, to make us submissive, said one voice. Then I heard another voice say, let's get her when she's alone. What was going on at Siamontes? I had to get back there. It is true. Sonia was going to overwhelm the male population with sex. Sex. All day, every day, until one produced an heir. The next baby, any baby, would get the crown upon their 13th birthday. She was not joking around. If there was no heir, then it would be off to the gallows with her Richard. It was Richard who found me lost in the dungeons. I would have died down there if he had not searched for me. How did he know I was down here in hiding? Maybe it was Great Leader. Maybe she was alive. Maybe she didn't join the men on the battlefields. Oh my. Oh goodness. Could she still be alive? I asked Richard, how is our Great Leader? Tell me of Siamontes. Please, please, Richard, tell me, I ordered, as he led me straight out of the dungeons. His torch was finely made. It shone bright. I cried as I smelled the fresh air. The dungeons were so moldy, so musty. I could not stand it much longer. Had I stayed down there any longer, I would have slit my wrists long ways. For that was the right way to end things. Long ways. Slice through your veins and your tendons. Cut them up, I was thinking to myself. Cut them up. As Richard and I reached the higher ground level of Siamontes, I shed a tear. I instantly left Richard. I could not help myself. I had to see my Great Leader. And I did. I saw her huddling with the masses. They were praying to God for the forgiveness of their sins, though they were the ones attacked. I interrupted their prayers. There would be no more asking for forgiveness. Beautiful women, what you did today was not wrong. Halt your voices. Halt your madness. You have reached victory today, and you have saved Siamontes. Then Great Leader approached me. Then all of the women and Richard rushed over to me. They cheered me on with adulation. "Oh, great new leader," said Samantha, and I screamed, "No, I am and will always be Sonia, and Richard is always to be my guide, my great protector, my knight in chainmail armor. Oh, glorious young knight, Richard, will you join me in my new chambers after I rinse myself, please? It was time to get busy. Ladies, to the showers. Perhaps we can all make Richard our king. Martha, you were a great leader, but now, can you find new chambers to sleep? I shall find somewhere else to sleep. It is cool weather. Perhaps I shall grab some blankets and sleep on the hard concrete bench next to the fire pit, since there are no more rooms available in Siamontes, except for in the dungeons. Martha raised her voice at me, her new leader. I was stunned. Why would she do such a thing? I loved Martha, but she did send me to the dungeons when she could have just locked me in the wardrobe up in the attic. She could have had someone deliver me food and water, or she could have done it herself. How dare you raise your voice to me, not 1 minute after giving me all power over Siamontes? How dare you? I could send you off to the dungeons for a night, or 2 or 20, or more. See what you think of it. While I was down there, I saw your predecessor. She was cuddled up next to a corpse. Is that where you want to end up? I think not. To the gallows with you, I ordered. And just like that, the beautiful women went from loving Martha to hating her. Tar and feather, tar and feather, to the gallows with her, shouted the women in unison. In Siamontes, you never disrespect your leader. It could be punishable by just the stocks for a lesser offense, then the gallows, then it was execution, much easier than a week in the gallows without food or water. You would pray for rainfall and not get it. Pure and intense suffering. And the mosquitoes at night would make you wish you had never been born. Stuck in your own filth, you could cry out to God all you wanted, but not even He could unlock the locks in the stocks. Strip her and search her right here on the spot. Then lock her away in the gallows until her death. Wait! Screamed Martha, but it was too late. They ripped off her dress and everything else. They had to drag her through the mud in the rain. Way to the gallows. Sludge covered Martha. She looked disgusting and pathetic. The stocks first, the hands second, and the head was locked in third. Lick at the rainwater. You'll die slower, I said. Then we abandoned her. We went back inside Siamontes out of the rain, and we rinsed off in the showers. We met Richard in my chambers, and we all had a good time. Perhaps this would be my good reckoning. Perhaps sweet Richard could give us an heir. I just wish he had a better nose and stronger thighs. Not the best in the bedroom. Richard would die soon at the age of 19, but that is a story for a different day. Good night, worse ways. Selena runs with a ferocity she didn't think she'd ever need again. Her feet thump, thump, thump on the ground, and her eyes search the dirty rooftop desperately for a familiar May. She knows she's taking too long. She can feel the time slipping through her fingers like grave dirt. She bursts out onto her fourth rooftop, a quick scan providing nothing. She turns around. Her ears catch onto the quietest sound, a scuff, a whimper. She runs over to the other corner of the building and checks behind a wall. There she is. May lays on the floor, cloudy eyes staring uselessly up at the sky, and her entire hand missing, blood leaking out of her at an alarming pace. Her gut is cut open and barely holding together, her leg bent the wrong way. Blood coats her entirely, her mouth, her neck, her chest. Selena's hand lands on his shoulder. May jumps, opening his mouth in surprise as she turns her head towards her. Selena? Her voice croaks out painfully, laced with a brittle sort of hope. Yeah, it's me, May. Hold on. Help is on the way. She'd called the ambulance as soon as she heard the news, hoping they'd be fast enough to get to her, find her, hoping she would be too. Selena carefully shifts May into her arms, getting her away from the dirty concrete, and trying desperately to stifle the blood spilling forth easily from her stomach. Selena, May says again, desperately. She says it like Selena is an angel about to bring her to salvation, as if Selena was what she needed, wanted, instead of some random punk from New York that kills people in his spare time, instead of someone who shot a bullet at her skull. I'm sorry. May grits out, blood leaking from her lips and coating his mouth. She feels useless, hopeless as blood continues to gush, and May is the one apologizing instead of her, the self-sacrificial dumbass she is. No, May, you don't get to say that. You stay with me, you hear? You stay right here with me. Her voice shakes, and she feels untethered, like everything is slipping away from her again. She runs her hands over May's unbroken arm, trying to ground the dying girl, trying to bring her back to the world of the living. Please, not again. May opens her mouth and breaks into loud, shattering coughs, blood dribbling down his chin even more. She shakes her, rougher than she probably should, trying to make her come back, make her stop drifting away, even when held beneath the calluses of her palms. May whines in pain. Come on, May. You can't go yet. You've got people to save. You've got friends who need you. Selena needs her, and yet May is leaving. She thinks of Jason and of her brother, Leo. They need her too. need her like the air in their lungs, like the blood in their veins, blood that May is covered in. May, please, hold on a bit longer. You can't leave me yet. Who else is going to knock the gun out of my hand? You promised. May we would live happily once this war is over. I haven't heard enough moral preaching yet. Come on. She's pleading, begging, praying to a God she no longer believes in. It's too sudden, too soon. She can't lose someone again. She can't. She'd listen to 1,000 hours of bull crap if it meant May would just live, if it meant May would continue to lecture her and annoy her and be beside her, side breathing and smiling. May's shaking hand reaches up to his shirt and latches on, staining it with her blood. She can hear the sirens getting louder, closer. See, Silena. May's voice is scratchy, pained, weak. Shut up, May. Don't talk. Just stay awake for me. They're so close. Just a little longer. She just needs to hold on a little longer. Silena. No. May can't do this to her. She can't say goodbye. She hears the weight of her name, the finality to it. The hand on her shirt slackens. Her body starts to go limp, and she can feel it. Feel the way death grips her, like it did her brother, like it did her dad. I will miss you. Silena feels her chest shudder with a sob. The tears slip freely from her cheeks. The hand reaches up again, and it's so cold against her cheeks, so cold as it wipes away her tears. She grabs it, holds on to it, like it's the last anchor she has, pressing it to her cheek in the reminder that Silena is here, that May can't leave her here all alone. May should be yelling at her, screaming at her, like she always does. She doesn't respond, even as she shakes her, doesn't move, or breathe, or smile, or yell at her. I'm sorry, May. She whispers to the sirens and the air and the quiet body before her. I'm sorry, May. May is held in her arms, and yet she is alone. She is alone. She yells at the sky, at herself, at the world. She yells, and she yells, and then she cries. Her lips press softly to the cold fingers of the girl she was only just learning to care for. She gently sweeps her bloody hands through dark hair for the first and last time. Slowly smooths her thumbs over those open, empty eyes and closes them against the harsh wind of the city. The paramedics storm the rooftop, and she's dragged away from the body. She doesn't stay to watch them load the body into the ambulance, doesn't stay to watch the ambulance drive off slowly. In no rush to save a dead person, she walks away to a panicked shouting. She lays down in his bed, soaked in another person's blood. She stares at the ceiling with an emptiness clawing at her heart until it drags her down into darkness. She wakes up 5 minutes before her alarm. She wakes without any sleepiness. Suddenly they're thrust into a world where she remembers the feeling of bloody hands against her cheek and the weight of a dead person in her lap. It takes her a second for the feelings to rush back, for the bone-deep exhaustion to settle familiarly in her chest, and the accompanying rage to guide her sights. She stands up as the alarm rings. A standard beep, beep, beep before she shuts it off. She looks at her hands. This gives her pause. She knows she didn't wash her hands last night, remembers the feeling of blood coating each and every finger and staining every surface she touched. Selena looks at the pristine white bed, then down at her spotless white top and clean jeans. Something is wrong. Her hand reaches for her phone, and she stares down at the date with a sinking sense of insanity. That can't be right. That's impossible. The numbers don't change. November 7th, it says, clearly, as if that makes any goddamn sense. Yesterday was November 7th. Yesterday she fell asleep, covered in blood. And yet, with a sudden ferocity, she finds her hands navigating the device, pulling up her contacts, and pressing firmly on a familiar name. The phone rings, and rings, and rings. Someone picks up. "Hello?" May says over the phone, her voice scratchy from sleep with an edge of worry. Her chest rattles with her next breath. His legs wobble, and she collapses onto her bed. "Hello?" May says louder, more alert, worried at the lack of response. "Hey," Silena says quietly. It's all she can say right now. What should one say to a dead woman? Not dead? How does one cope when the woman you held till her dying breath is breathing again? "Are you okay? Do you need help?" May asks. There's shuffling over the other side of the phone. A creak. More shuffling. As if May was suiting up. "I'm fine. It's nothing," she grits out. Her chest hurts. Her eyes ache. Her head is swimming with confusion. It doesn't sound like nothing. "Where are you?" "I'm coming over." May declares like the soldier she is, always ready to help, to fight. Misclick. She grits out before she hangs up the phone. She resists the temptation to throw it. She resists the urge to scream. She knows nightmares. She has them every night. But never has one been that real. Maybe she really is going crazy. Tremors shake her body. And she can't just forget holding someone while they die. Can't forget those sightless eyes, or those cold hands, or the putrid smell of blood so strong she was swimming in it. She can't forget the sticky warmth on her hands and her chest and her cheek, on her lips. It's like Todd all over again. Except this time, she can't trust herself, can't trust what she saw and felt and heard and smelled and tasted. She tasted death. May was dead when she fell asleep. May was alive when she woke up. May is alive. Memories of the same past experience hit her like a full-speed bullet train. She's still alive. They are stuck in a time loop, and this is going to repeat. Mother, dearest, Annie, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot about this weekend. I'm really unwell, so I probably couldn't have made it anyway. If you can wait, I'll help you next weekend. I promise. Love you, XXX. My heart sank. Sarah was unreliable, and she does this all the time. But I really thought she'd come through this time. I suppose I thought that every time, but this time I was hoping it would be different. I knew deep down that our friendship was slipping away. We both led totally different lives, but I felt it would be quite a shame to let a near 20-year friendship fade into nothing. It was clear where she stood on it, however, as she was putting less and less effort into her lies. Next weekend would turn into next month, and next month would turn into after Christmas. By the time we got round to it, when she had a weekend where she had nothing else to do, my Gran's old house would be commandeered by rats, bugs, and all manner of weeds. It was now going to be a long, lonely 3-hour drive across the country to Newbiggin, and an even lonelier weekend clearing out the house. Part of the reason I'd wanted her to come was that I didn't want to stay there overnight on my own. It was the creepiest place I'd ever been. Every summer up until I turned 14, I was forced to spend 2 weeks there while my parents flew off to some tropical destination for a break. It wasn't until I disappeared the night before I was due to be dropped off that my parents took my complaints seriously. I left them a ransom note stating that I was not in trouble and that I was safe at a friend's house. I informed them that I would return home the next morning at 11, an hour before they were due to leave for the airport. When I returned the following morning, at exactly 11 a.m., my mother was already sat in the passenger seat of the car. As I walked up the drive, my father came out of the front door to meet me. He handed me the house key and an envelope, and looked at me with sly grin. Your mother is upset, as you can see. She wants to leave early. He put his hand on my shoulder. I know you hate going to your Gran's. Quite frankly, I don't blame you. But you're on your own for 2 weeks now, kid. You've got the key. There's 200 quid in there, and that has to last you until we get back. If you starve, then that's on you. And no parties, or I will personally deliver you to your gran's house and leave you there for a month." He hugged me and kissed me on the head, then got in the car. My mother didn't look at me as they backed off the drive. After a few hours of flicking between podcasts and the radio, I pulled onto the narrow country road that led to the house. It hadn't rained for a few days, but somehow the road was thick with wet mud, and the many potholes that lined it were filled with brown water. I drove carefully along for about 15 minutes until I rounded the last bend and saw the small tree that stretched over the low stone wall of the front garden. As I drove up the driveway, I had to fight every fiber of my being to not reverse out of there and leave the bloody house to rot. Why was I even here? Through some weird sense of loyalty to my mother, a woman that only saw her own mother through proxy, like some old billionaire that can't be bothered to attend board meetings. She had always refused to go to my grand's house, and also refused to explain to me why. She left as soon as she was able and moved to the nearest city. Soon after, she met my father, and the rest is history. As far as I could remember, the only time she has been back since was to see my grandfather on his deathbed. Even then, she refused to stay over. I got out of the car and tip-toed my way around more potholes to the large red front door. I pulled out the large brass key I was sent by the lawyers and opened it. It was made from a thick slab of heavy wood. I had to use my shoulder and put all of my weight into it to push it open. Once inside, I struggled to see anything. Dusk was arriving outside, and the windows were so thick with grime that the little daylight that was left was barely getting through. I pulled out my key ring and turned on my small travel torch, when something to the right of me caught the corner of my eye. Something moved. I know it did. The painting above the radiator moved its head. I swear it did. But it couldn't have, obviously. It's a painting. My hands were tingling, and my heart felt like it was climbing a hill in a spin class. I kept the torch shining on the painting and took a few deep breaths, holding for 4 seconds and then exhaling. The painting did not move Annie. I made my way down the hallway to the main room. I retraced my childhood steps towards the large lamp in the corner of the room. I would sneak down here in the middle of the night and read all of my grandfather's old books. The only thing I actually wanted from this clear-out was his original copy of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I would read it every summer. It was the only thing I looked forward to. I found the lamp. I fumbled around with the switch, as my hands were still sweaty. When I eventually got it on, my heart sank. The bookshelf was empty. There as very little dust on the shelves, which means it was recently cleared. As far as I was told, I had the only key, so either I was being lied to or someone had broken in. My only hope was that they were in the cupboard at the bottom. I looked in with my pocket torch and was met with spider webs. I made to stand up, but something stopped me in my tracks. I froze to the spot. My eyes widened to the point where I thought they might fall out. I held my breath. Silence surrounded me until I heard it again. It pierced through my chest. I wanted to scream, to heave open the huge door and leave without looking back. But something kept me there. I slowly turned around. I tried to silently creep through the room, over to the bottom of the large wooden staircase in the middle of the grand hallway. But with every step came a creak from the ancient floorboards. Each creak of the floorboards seemed to reverberate up my spine. My head was fizzing. I reached the entrance back into the hallway, and I could still hear the laugh. It was coming from upstairs. I was drenched with sweat. I could almost feel the drops leaving my pores. My cortisol levels must have been breaking all sorts of records. This is insane. Why am I going up the stairs? At the top of the stairs, the main bedroom and the bathroom were to the right. On the left was my mother's old bedroom, the bedroom that I inherited during those dreaded summers. I waited at the top and held my breath, listening for the laughter. If this was all a game by some silly country kids, they would be lucky to leave with all of their fingers. After a few seconds, I heard it. It was coming from my mother's old room. Enough sneaking about, I leapt up the final stair and burst into the room. Empty. I listened again, but the laughter had stopped. I shone the torch around the room. I had to take a second to think back, to make sure I was remembering things right, as the room looked totally different to the last time I was here. It had been turned into a shrine for my mother. There was pictures of her everywhere, some with her parents, some with my father. There was one of her holding me as a newborn, some with her and friends. All of her old toys were dotted around the room on shelves and drawers. Old medals and school certificates were stuck to the walls. I didn't understand. Why would my grandmother do this? My mother always told me she was cold and distant, never showed any real affection. I always believed her, as that was exactly how she was with me. This made no sense, but who else would do it if it wasn't her? I picked up a photo of my mother as a baby. I looked exactly like her at that age. I almost had time to form a smile before being shocked so much. I dropped the picture and smashed the glass. Bright lights were flashing in through the window, almost as if someone was speaking Morse code. I made my way over to the window and saw that the light was coming from the headlights of my car. Shit. I must have left them on. I hope the battery isn't going flat. I rummaged around in my pockets for my keys until I realized I had them in my hand as I was using the pocket torch I made to turn around, when I felt an ice-cold hand grip the back of my neck. I swung my arm around violently, elbow first, hoping to connect hard with whoever had grabbed me. I didn't connect, so I swung my arms around, hoping to land any sort of blow, just enough for me to create some space and get out. I swung and kicked, but hit nothing. There was no one there. I shook my head and repeated the same breathing exercises as I had performed in front of the painting downstairs before walking over to the door. I need to leave now. And I do mean now. Don't leave me, Annie. My fingers froze around the door handle as if it was covered in super glue. Please don't leave me, Annie. Stay here and play with me. I shone the torch up to where I heard the voice. I tried to scream. I had to scream. If I didn't scream, my head was going to explode. My mother was sat up in her bed, clutching her childhood doll. Don't go out there. If you go out there, you'll die. I don't want you to die, Annie. I want you to stay here with me forever. The scream finally left me. It left me with more force than anything I have ever felt in my life. The whole room seemed to shake. I screamed until every last breath had left my lungs. Then I threw open the door so hard it almost came off. Its hinges. I sprinted down the stairs, jumping down the last 4. I reached the front door. I hadn't locked it when I'd came in, so I twisted the large brass handle and pulled. I couldn't use my weight to push it open this time, so I opened it as far as I could, then squeezed my fingers into the opening so I could have a better grip on the door to pull. I heard the laughter again. It was getting louder, which meant it was getting closer. Annie, don't be silly. You'll die out there. Stay with me. I pulled and pulled. I eventually put my foot in the gap and pushed the door back with my heel. Once there was enough space, I squeezed through, then sprinted over to my car, swinging the door open, then diving in. I turned the key once, twice. On the 3rd time it worked. I put it into gear, ripped the handbrake down, span around, and drove straight through the closed gate. The casualty has been identified as Annie Jones after her car skidded off a country road and collided head-on with a tree. The incident is made even more tragic, as she had been driving back home after visiting her late grandmother's house to deal with her estate due to the tragic deaths of her mother and father the previous year. Our thoughts go out to her close friends and family at the unfortunate time. Quest in time. Where is Julienne? It is a question that has haunted my mother, father, and myself. It was 3 years ago when my life changed forever. My sister, Julienne, disappeared coming home from Red Oak Park, a county recreation site about 20 miles west of Jonesburg, a small town south of Cleveland, Mississippi. The park had a pond with access to Lake Colbert and the Mississippi River. Lots of trees and hiking trails, campgrounds, and a couple of boat docks. My sister and her boyfriend had gone to the park to celebrate the Thanksgiving holiday. The two had gotten into an argument. She had gotten mad, told him to find his own way home, and had gotten in her car and left. First of all, you might be wondering why my sister was driving. That had a lot to do with the argument they had got into. Her boyfriend, Steve Simich, was currently a stocker in a grocery store, did not have a car, at least not one that worked, was trying to finish college, although not very successfully, and didn't seem too worried about whatever was ahead. My sister, on the other hand, Julianne Harden, had finished college, worked a full-time job, and was preparing for a life with a house, a family, and a future. Although there was no doubt she loved him, I believe that, looking back, she was beginning to doubt how much he loved her. His unwillingness or inability to move forward in a responsible manner was a red flag she couldn't ignore. So, that being the case, according to Steve's account, she blew her stack, fussed at him, and jumped in the car, speeding off down the road. She was never seen again. The police were called when she didn't make it home that night. Steve was interviewed, but the fact that he had to call a friend to pick him up at the park, something that was verified by the police, seemed to clear him of any part in my sister's disappearance. We called on friends and family, searched the roads between our house and the park, but found no sign of her or her car. 3 days later, her car was found in a church parking lot. There was no video or security camera, so no evidence of who left it there. No matter how we searched or the police investigated, no evidence of her has been found since. I was 17, a freshman at Hobart University when this happened. She was 22, a graduate from the same college, and just starting her life. Although my questions started then, my quest didn't begin until my senior year, when I was finishing up a degree in criminal justice. My last semester at college, I had a chance to get an internship with the county sheriff's office, and I worked to get located at the same precinct that had investigated my sister's case. I did not mention my sister because I was afraid that they might see my placement there as some kind of conflict of interest. Luckily, it had been long enough since my sister disappeared that the detective assigned to the case, Jonathan Lucker, seemed not to recognize me or remember my name. I kept a low profile, determined not to be found out. I started in late January, with responsibilities to be assigned on a daily basis. My boss was Sergeant Holcroft, a middle-aged black woman who talked with a hard-nosed tone, but showed empathy and caring if you looked deep enough. In between cleaning interview rooms, filing personnel records, and filling out supply forms, I perused the computer, which I now had at least limited access to, and prowled the evidence locker to see what I could find out about my sister. Unfortunately, I could find very little that I didn't already know. She had left the park about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, according to her boyfriend's testimony, and started home. That was the last time she was seen. Being a long stretch of mostly rural highway, they could find no witnesses that saw her on the road, nor could they find anything that showed how the car ended up at the church parking lot. There weren't any fingerprints, DNA, blood, or any other clues in the car. And I was now determined to find out what happened to her. The only thing they found in her car was a plastic fork, not used, lying on the floorboard. Her purse and coat were in the back seat, as if they had been moved out of the way. Did that mean someone had joined her in the car? No one knew. I pored through the files on the computer and in the records themselves, looking at every note, form, report from other agencies that had been gathered until I could name, page, and paragraph where a certain fact could be found. "What are you looking at?" a voice suddenly interrupted me as I pored over papers on the back row desk that I had taken over. I was so concentrating on understanding everything that I could about my sister's case, I didn't notice the approach of Detective Lucker. This might not be good, I thought. Sorry. I sat back in my seat. I thought I would familiarize myself with some processes used to investigate cases, including your sister's case, I see, he said. Detective Lucker was short, slightly bald-headed, with a thin gray mustache, thick fingers, and eyes that looked straight through you. I sat back even more, surprised that he knew who I was. I had been counting on a non-existent anonymity, it seems like. He smiled. Yes, I remember you. I don't forget cases that haven't been solved, nor the people involved in them. I also don't have any problem with you researching the case. However, that may not be true of everyone in the office. There are 2 caveats, he continued. One is that you don't do anything that would jeopardize the case. You don't contact anyone. You don't mess with the evidence. You don't talk to anyone else in the office. If you have questions, you come to me. Secondly, if you come up with any facts, theories, or other information related to your sister's disappearance, you come directly to me immediately. Do you understand? I nodded enthusiastically. From having to sneak around, watching my back, to being given permission to research all I wanted to, discreetly, of course, was more than I could hope for. Yes, sir, I answered quickly. Anything that you have to tell me? He followed up with the to-be-expected question. No, sir. I shook my head. Nothing yet, he pointed at me. If you do find anything, let me know immediately. I will give you some hints, he continued. The boyfriend was investigated thoroughly. He had no motive, and we were able to confirm that he was at the park until he was picked up by a friend about 4:30. We could also not find any other friends or acquaintances who had motive or opportunity. She was traveling home, alone. You will see all this on the report. Her phone stopped sending signals not long after it left the park. Whether she turned it off or the battery died, we don't know. From what Steve told the family after it happened, I interrupted. He tried to call her many times after she left. Knowing my sister, she probably turned her phone off so as to not be bothered by his frantic messaging. The detective nodded. That sounds reasonable. Again, let me know if you find anything, he said, and walked away. I took that as a command not to be trifled with, but I didn't care. Anything I found out would have been on his desk the next day anyway. So, in that regard, nothing had changed. Except now, I had permission. I didn't have to feel guilty about doing my behind-the-scenes snooping, and better yet, my quest to find out what happened to my sister was on full throttle. I am sure there are cliches that I haven't used yet, but stay tuned. I spent the next several days in between doing the job that I was actually hired to do, going through the folders that I had found in the evidence files. The police had very little to go on. They didn't know when or where she disappeared, except it was somewhere between the park and the town, 20 miles away. They looked at security cameras along the main road, but although they saw similar makes and models, were not able to positively identify my sister's car. One note said that a similar type of vehicle was shown passing by a gas station, but did not show up in any other images between there and town. Again, did that have anything to do with my sister? Was it someone else who turned off to go home, visit someone, or head down a more rural road where only farms existed with no cameras or security images? I continued my research over the next several weeks, heading toward the time when my internship was fast running out. When the college semester ended, so did my internship. Luckily, the officer I worked for basically let me do my own thing and didn't assign me too many additional responsibilities that would make my research even more difficult. I wondered if Detective Lucker had said something to her, but I was afraid to ask. More and more, I became frustrated because there was so little to go on, and I came to appreciate how difficult the initial investigation had been. I feared that my question would remain unanswered until suddenly my duties as an intern helped me find the clue that I had been looking for. I was cleaning up folders from the conference room to be refiled after a meeting when I happened to look at the heading on one file, Sarah Jane Fuller, missing person. The tab on the folder read, "Curious, I closed the conference room door, sat down, and opened it up. There were the usual reports and a picture of the missing girl. Attractive white girl with brown hair and a thin, pointed chin. Her eyes seemed to stare at me. I quickly placed it on the table and read the basic details. She had disappeared the year after my sister and was driving from eastern Tennessee through Mississippi, heading to New Orleans. Although there were interstate highways that provided fast and safe passages, for some reason, she was driving along the Mississippi River, taking back roads and rural highways. Her family said that she loved the river and visited it as often as she could, no matter what state she was in. So there was a possibility that she had driven that way for the scenery. Her phone had stopped pinging on Highway 17, just east of Rosewood, a town not far from the river. To me, the interesting part was that my sister Julienne would have taken the same route, at least part of the way. Like my sister, her car was later found in a deserted parking lot. Again, like my sister, there were no security cameras that picked up any footage of her car, or anything else. Were there any other missing people in the last 5 or so years? I found another candidate, this one an older man. Timothy Mitchell was last seen at a friend's house on Takeoff Ard in June 2022. Takeoff Road ran south and north of Highway 17. This occurred last year, again in the Thanksgiving or Christmas time frame. Another coincidence? His truck had never been found. I kept looking, but found no other missing persons in that geographic area, at least in the last 5 years. But why that area? It was probably as simple as the perpetrator lived close, but was there more to it? I researched every chance I got. When I wasn't doing my day job, or going to school, or anything else I was legitimately supposed to be doing. The end of my internship was approaching rapidly, and I was fast running out of time. In fact, tomorrow was going to be my last day. I kept looking at the files, searching for anything that might be related. Just as I was fixing to hang it up for the day, the year and perhaps forever, I found the key. I knew now why the location mattered. Would that lead to the person or persons we were looking for? Would that lead me to Julienne? At noon the next day, I was sitting in my car outside of Josephine's Roadhouse, an old-fashioned restaurant located on Highway 17, halfway between the river and Jonesburg, hoping that the person I was waiting for would show up. I gave a big sigh of relief when a familiar car pulled into the parking lot and Detective Lucker stepped out. I had left an invitation on his desk before leaving the night before, since today I would be involved in out-processing, turning in paperwork, filling out forms, etc., and would probably have very little time to see him in person. The invitation was vague, but stressed that it was not a social event and might be very important to an answer that we both wanted. I met him in the parking lot, and we walked into the building. It was as old-fashioned inside as it was outside, with plaid tablecloths, white walls covered with old portraits, plaster statues on tables in each corner, and pictures of customers above each booth. We sat down and started looking at the menu. I was waiting for the detective to ask something, but he kept quiet, obviously content to leave it up to me. After we ordered, I looked at him, hoping that I wasn't going to sound like an idiot or nutcase. "Thank you for meeting me on short notice," I started off with. He nodded, but didn't reply. "I was researching, as you are aware, and I found some interesting coincidences," I said. "What coincidences?" he asked, already looking intrigued. I told him about the missing people besides Julianne, and stressed that this was only based on an initial search, and there might be more. "What makes you think they are related?" he asked. "The location was the first thing that came to mind," I replied. They were all thought to be either on Highway 17 or approaching or leaving the highway. Also, the time of year. All disappearances occurred in the November or December time frame. "I am assuming you found out what was so special about Highway 17, he asked. I nodded. "I believe I did. That is why I asked you to meet me here today," I said, taking a deep breath. Almost a year before my sister went missing, a wreck occurred on Highway 17. In that wreck, Joanne McKenzie, a 54-year-old mother of two, was killed. She supposedly lost control and hit a tree head-on. The car was old, and the airbag failed to deploy. "Supposedly?" the detective asked, as I had expected him to. The son, Timothy McKenzie, who was 21 years old at the time, did not agree with the police report. He kept saying to anyone who would listen that it was no accident, that his mother was murdered, and that the police were negligent. He complained to the news, to the city and county authorities, and even to the state. I found records online of letters he wrote to websites and news outlets all the way up until October of the next year. "October?" the deputy asked, his voice suddenly sounding very curious. I nodded. "The last thing I saw was about a month before my sister's disappearance. Maybe he just gave up and stopped fighting a lost cause. Maybe," I agreed. "Except he also reached out after my sister's disappearance, as well as the other disappearances, by writing letters or posts about how unsafe our state highways were." "You think that he is involved in these disappearances in some way?" "I do. These disappearances emphasize how unsafe the roads are, and that there are people out there who could be responsible for his mother's death. By causing these people to disappear, he is getting his vengeance on the entire state." "But wouldn't these actions result in increased police presence, in making it harder for him to commit future crimes?" "Maybe," I answered. "But it hasn't happened yet." The other thing, as I mentioned, was the time frame. These 3 disappearances occurred within a month or so of the date that his mother was killed. And Mackenzie and his family have a farm off Highway 17. We have time, location, motive. The detective thought for a minute. Even if this unlikely story is true, we have no evidence to tie him to any crime. One other thing. I leaned forward. His mother is buried on a private cemetery on the McKinsey property. Where is a better place to hide bodies than in a cemetery, especially a private one? And, I continued, even a private cemetery has to be licensed by the county and is subject to health and welfare inspections. I leaned back. My case was made. Now it was up to the detective. He thought for a minute. "Okay," was all he said before getting up to go. "I will take care of it. Any reason that we met here?" he asked his last question. "Yes," I said. "The McKinsey family owns this restaurant." I waited and watched him leave. I had no doubt that he would find a way onto the property. And, unfortunately, I also had no doubt that he would find the missing people, and that my question would finally be answered. Where was Julienne? I was fixing to find out. A living mirage. Life, as funny as it sounds, flows in a circle. And I, personally, never liked circles. I'm more of an octagon kind of person. Sally snorts at her own thoughts, but groans when the noise is muffled by the hand that is covering the lower part of her face. It smells of sewerage, grimy, disgusting, and somewhat musty. Familiar, heart-wrenching, stomach-churning, brain-rotting, but familiar. Maybe a little too familiar. His movements are sluggish, as usual. His joints crack with every step, and Sally fears he might die on the spot. Although she is certain nobody would miss good old Donovan Peters if he were to suddenly disappear. They slowly creep into the familiar room, announcing their arrival with every creak of rotten wooden floor. Sally's mind wistfully returns to her life before this. Was there even one? Her memory falters. Why can't I remember? Her eyes scan the room frantically, sweeping over the unmade bed, splintered floor, and boarded-up window. Her home. Her cell. Her hands strain against the rope, shaking from the terror of having returned to this fearful place. NPA. Her protest is muffled, much like her snort from earlier. No, no. This will not do. His voice is croaky and barely clear. If she had not known his actual age, she might have thought him to be on the verge of expiration. His chest presses against the back of her head as he forces her inside. His shove is aggressive, and when she falls to the floor, his laughter ricochets off the walls. She barely manages to get to her knees when the door is slammed, locked and barred. Donovan's sinister laughter continues to echo as the sound of his footsteps retreats. Sally shakes her head, forcing tears back into her eyes. She won't. No, she refuses to lose any more of them for that monster. I told you, it won't work. A doe-eyed beauty emerges from the darkest corner of the room. Sally's temper flares, and she springs to her feet, charging at the beauty. It was you, wasn't it? Her voice is cold enough to slice through any warmth in the room, and the beauty lowers her eyes. Sally tugs on the rope around her wrists until it unties, and then uses it to press down onto the other girl's neck. Layla Angelou can rot for all I care. The voice in her head is loud, and she hisses. The girl claws at the rope around her throat and falls back against the wall. Splinters pierce her skin, but she refuses to make a sound. It's always you. Why? Sally's eyebrows are pulled together furiously, and her sharp blue eyes have turned into ice. Don't lie to me. Sally's outburst receives no reply, and her arms finally slump enough for the girl to breathe. But she does not remove the rope. A sob racks through her chest. I thought that this time, at least this once, you'd let me go. Go where? The girl rasps, rubbing her throat. Her luscious black hair cascades down her back and shoulders, perfectly framing her figure. Her green eyes hold a certain complicated depth, and her plump pink lips are pulled into a miserable pout. Sally pulls away completely. Somewhere, nowhere, anywhere but here. She turns her back on the girl and throws the rope aside, massaging her bruised wrists. We can make this work, Sally. I promise. If you just try, you'll see. Please, why can't you just stay with me? Sally ignores her. This is a conversation they've had before, a fruitless one. Once she's soothed the sting on her wrists, she turns around to face the girl again. Her eyes trail down to her throat, and her stomach churns at the fresh burn marks. She knew her throat was already sensitive. She can admit when she was out of line. I'm sorry, Layla. Her head nods in the direction of the girl's neck, but the girl waves it away quickly. Not a problem at all. Happens to us all. They remain in silence for a good 5 minutes before Layla walks towards the bed and starts to fix the bedding. She hums a soft tune as she works, sounding rather cheerful. Sally hates it. How can she be so content? In a situation such as this, I kept some dinner for you. Layla pulls a corroded metal bowl from below the bed and nudges it towards Sally, who reluctantly nears to accept it. The half-eaten apple in the bowl is bruised and looks less than appetizing, but she sends Layla a grateful smile and devours it. I'll try again someday. You know that, right? Something scratches at the window, scaring the two. Layla nearly trips over her own feet as she rushes to hide behind Sally's figure. Not that Sally has any height advantage over her. Sally pats Layla's hand on her shoulder, comfortingly, before removing it and placing the bowl on the ground. She clamps the apple core in her hand and crouches closer to the window. Something about this feels too familiar, and Sally falters in her steps. Something about the entire night feels way too familiar. Yes, she's been in this predicament for quite some time, but the déjà vu she's experienced tonight has been one too many for her to just ignore it. The boards used to cover the window start to blur, pixelate. Sally glances over her shoulder at Layla to confirm if she's just imagining things. But the sheer confusion on Layla's face says it all. Everything is real. Sally stops in front of the window and gasps when she sees the image within the pixelated particles. A scene, much like the one she's just experienced with Donovan, is mirrored in front of her. A mirage? That's not possible. She reaches forward, holding her breath as her fingertips breach the surface of the image before her. Sally turns around to face Layla, but her breathing stops completely when Layla's figure has disappeared. Her eyes scan the room frantically, but all evidence of Layla having been there has disappeared. Layla? She tries to call, but her voice gets stuck in her throat. Sally turns towards the mirage again and falls backwards when her eyes connect with those of Layla. Only this time, Layla's eyes are a forest green, with a small red fire burning inside her pupils. Pain creeps through her body as her back makes contact with the floor. Layla opens her mouth, and what comes out is a cruel cackle. Inside the mirage, Sally can see another version of herself being shoved into the room and then having a fight with Layla. But the difference is that there are two versions of Layla. The one is pressed against the wall by the other Sally, and the other one is standing to the side and laughing hysterically, like she is watching a form of comedy. Oh, Sally dear. The cackling Layla turns to face Sally through the mirage, and the pixelated particles of the window starts to shimmer. Sally crawls backwards when Layla's hand pierces the surface, and pale, bony fingers clamp around the frame of the window. I remember this. Her voice is muffled by uncertainty, but she manages to push herself up from the floor. I remember all of this. She says this to herself as confirmation. Her eyes dart around the room, and then back at where Layla is still dragging herself through the pixels. She never understood her unsanctioned hate towards Layla. But suddenly, it all makes sense. Every memory stabs at her mind, and for once, she understands what is happening. She's always hated Layla because she knew exactly what she was. That's why Layla does this. Sally runs towards the bed and collects the rope from the ground in the process. I will escape! She ties the rope around one of the springs at the bottom of the bed and bites into her hand, hard enough to draw blood. Tears spill from her eyes as she smears her blood all over the rope, and then uses her index finger to write 3 simple words on the bottom of the mattress. "You must escape." She stares at the words, her stomach churning from another feeling of déjà vu. "I've done this before?" She grits her teeth painfully before reaching up to add something else. "You must escape, Layla." Sally crawls out from under the bed and eyes Layla's half-emerged figure fearfully. Without a second longer to lose, she runs to the door and starts banging frantically. With every second she's banging, Layla crawls further out of the pixelated window, laughing comically at Sally's terror. What's all the ruckus about? Donovan barges into the room, but Sally ducks underneath his arms and runs with her every fiber to reach the front door. The stairs complain under her weight as she trips down them, but she doesn't stop. "Oh, Sally." Layla's voice sing-songs from behind her, and she shudders. Sally bumps against torn furniture and leaps over newspapers strewn all over the floor, but her eyes stay focused on the black, bolted front door. Her hands shake as she jiggles the locks around, but they refuse to budge. "Come on, Sally. I just want to play." "That's right. We just want to play." Donovan's voice has turned more laryngeal, and Sally's skin crawls. "Please, no." She ruffles the old newspapers on the table beside the door, searching for the keys. But her movement stills when she notices an odd peculiarity in all of the newspapers. Although they are of different dates and already discolored, they have one thing in common: a picture of her. Although they have been edited and computer-generated to show her at different ages, they are all her. Her head spins, and bile pushes up her throat. Sally backs away from the table until her back bumps against a kitchen counter. A voice inside of her yells at her to run, but her feet stay plastered to the ground. Layla's comical laughter has turned into sinister screams, and Sally can finally hear Donovan's heavy footfalls approaching the staircase. She shakes her head to clear her thoughts and almost releases a sigh of relief when she notices a pair of rusty keys peeking out from below a chipped teacup. Sally grabs the keys and rushes to the door, willing her trembling hands to still and complete the task. One lock clicks open, then another, and finally, the last one. Sally nearly sags to the floor in relief, but manages to keep herself poised enough to pull the door open. She runs out of the door, down the 2 stone steps, and onto the asphalt ground. She manages to run all the way to a broken-down truck when Donovan's voice booms in the form of a roar. She ducks behind the truck and presses her back securely against it. Her chest rises and falls erratically, and she makes sure to slow her breathing as to not make a sound. She lowers herself to the ground and pulls her knees to her chest, begging for a door of any of the surrounding houses to open and for someone to come to her rescue, but no one does. Ever. The silence that follows Donovan's roar is deafening. Layla has also stopped cackling, and not even birds can be heard. This is the first time Sally scans the houses around them, only to notice the degraded state every one of the houses are in. They are old and decrepit. There is no possibility that anyone can live in these houses. Her heart stutters, and her entire body goes cold. She turns her gaze towards the side mirror of the truck and finds a terrified version of herself staring back. Her eyes widen at the words scrawled onto the mirror in old, dried blood. Not safe. Follow arrows. Her lips part, but no oxygen enters. She manages to push herself to her feet, albeit shakily, and glances around the truck. Donovan is standing in the doorway, looking around calmly. Behind him, the low hum of Layla's singing fills the air. Run, little mouse. Run, little mouse. Let's all have some fun. Goosebumps spread across the entirety of Sally's body, and she hisses before pushing against the surface of the truck and taking off in the direction of the first arrow that's drawn beside the writing on the mirror. Layla's laughter fills the air, but Sally ignores her as she pushes her legs and pumps her arms harder, harder. Her eyes scan the surrounding area as she runs, looking for any sign of an arrow. The arrows lead her all the way to an abandoned parking lot of a large business. Her eyes fleet around frantically, but she sees no more arrows. With Layla's humming from behind as her motivation, she runs into the building and ducks below the entrance gates. But when she stops in front of the doors of the elevator, her entire body freezes. From the surface of the elevator door, albeit blurry due to the deterioration, she can see two glowing orbs smiling back at her. Those orbs are illuminated by a red fire burning from the middle of the black pupils. Poor little mouse. Layla leans over Sally's shoulder and skims her cold fingers across her cheek. It's so easy to lay a trap for a mouse who loves its cheese. She laughs hysterically and leans onto Sally for support. This is not the end. Sally bites back, curling her hands into fists. Layla stares at her through the reflection of the elevator door before laughing comically. You're right, dear. This, she waves her hand around as if showcasing her to an audience, is simply the beginning. And we, she points a finger at Sally and then back at herself. We are going to have a lot more fun together. Sally rips herself away from Layla and spins around. But Layla tuts, snaps her fingers, and then slaps her palm against Sally's forehead in one swift movement. "There's no rush, dear." With her words, Sally's world starts to spin, and her eyes flicker before she is consumed by darkness, and the next thing she sees is the familiar, cold, creaking hallway of Donovan's apartment. He forces her down the hall with his chest pressed against the back of her head, and his hand clamped securely around the lower half of her face. Life, as funny as it sounds, flows in a circle. And I, personally, never liked circles. I'm more of an octagon kind of person. Sally snorts at her own thoughts, but groans when the noise is muffled by the hand that is covering the lower part of her face. It smells of sewerage, grimy, disgusting, and somewhat musty. Familiar, heart-wrenching, stomach-churning, brain-rotting, but familiar. But for the first time, it seems just a little too familiar. The betrayal. The door to the kitchen flew open and hit the side of the refrigerator with a loud thud. Cold air rushed in. "You rotten bitch. I trusted you." Brock McCarthy stood in the doorway with his shoulders squared and fists clenched. "How could you do that to me?" His nostrils flared as he shook his head. Stunned, Clara Simmons gasped when she heard the commotion. After she regained her composure, she bristled at the hateful accusation. She placed the half-empty dinner plate she was holding in the sink. Staring into his brown eyes, she asked, "What the hell are you talking about?" After 2 years of living together, she knew Brock's temper, but this deranged outburst was worse than usual. "You know damn well what I'm talking about. My secret. I told you never to tell anyone about that shit. I didn't say anything to anybody." Her words were unhurried but emphatic. "You had to tell somebody something. When I went to the back door after work, all the guys started busting my balls, dropping hints, talking shit like they knew things. All of them acted like they knew something. And you're the only one I talked to about that shit." Brock unzipped his black leather jacket and draped it on the back of a kitchen chair. "Why did you do it? You're nuts. Or you're drunk. I didn't say anything." They glared at each other as a chilling silence gradually filled the room. "Hell, I'm not even close to being drunk. I had to leave the bar before I could finish my pitcher." It was impossible to tell what Brock was more agitated about, leaving cold beer or defending himself against the swirling speculations about his hidden, checkered past. "Did you bother to ask how your drinking buddies heard about your precious secret?" Her voice was soft, as if asking a child if they had finished their homework. "I didn't have to. Damn it. You are the only one who knows." With unhurried steps, Clara walked around the kitchen table, pulling on the back of the chair. The faint scraping of the wooden legs against the linoleum broke the quiet, like fingernails on a chalkboard. She took a seat and cast her gaze towards her angry boyfriend. "That's not exactly true." She paused as their eyes momentarily locked. Is it? The tone of her now controlled voice was made bitter by a toxic mix of scorn and controlled rage. Those women know. After a long pause to emphasize her point, she said, "Trust me, they really know." Like air escaping from a balloon, Brock's body went limp. Without making a sound, he fell into the chair across from her, searching her face for a clue about her intentions. Look, you chose to tell me about your twisted secret. It was your choice. Clara's voice was cold. And I haven't told a soul since. But now I'm wondering what else you might be hiding. Wait, that's not fair. Fair? Fair? You have the balls to mention fair to me? That's laughable. You bust in here and accuse me of betraying you without a shred of evidence. I've always told you everything. Brock reached up and scratched the scruffy hair on his face. I didn't have to tell you about the women and what happened. But I did. And now you expect me to carry the same guilt? Clara adjusted her glasses. No, of course not. It's not guilt, exactly. Not really. It's more like, I don't know how to explain it. They sat listening to the faint sound of the small clock on the oven, ticking away the minutes, like the shattered pieces of their failing relationship. Absent-mindedly, Clara used her thumb to wipe the pepper dust off the shaker, sitting in the middle of the table. Do you think one of the women, moved here? He took a long time to answer, as if he hated the power of what truth might do to him. It's possible. He bit the inside of his cheek a few times while he thought. Clara leaned back in her chair. So, what will you do? I mean, if you see one of them? She stifled a yawn as her composure returned. There's another possibility. What if one of those women sent their boyfriend to find you? Like a trapper beating the bushes to get the snakes to show where they're hiding. Brock twisted his face into a scowl after he deciphered her meaning. Crap. He leaned back into his chair. He sat silent for a long moment. I've never even thought about that. It was always a slim possibility, I guess. Well, I think you had better start thinking about that possibility, because I never said a word to anyone, ever. Why would I? Brock pursed his lips and folded his arms in resignation. Holy shit. What are we going to do now? We? Are you seriously thinking this problem is a we thing? I didn't have anything to do with that shit. I wasn't there. I don't even know who they are. This is your ugly history, not mine. Always has been. I thought we were a couple. I thought we were, getting serious. Brock's voice conveyed desperation. Oh yeah, that was before you came in here and blamed me for something I didn't do. I don't think I want to stick around to see what else you might blame me for. No, babe, wait. You can't do that. Really? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Well, I guess you should have thought about that before you shoved open the kitchen door with a heart full of hate. I went from bitch to babe in 5 minutes, and I don't want to see how long it'll take next time. She placed her hands flat on the table. Calmly, she rose and ambled across the kitchen towards the bedroom. Stopping halfway, she turned and said, "I don't want to become another secret in your long history of betrayals. Where I come from, love is all about trust. And you just lost mine. And now you're losing me." She turned and went into the bedroom and slammed the door. So today's story has come to an end. Or perhaps it never really ended. There are mysteries still there, questions still unanswered, and sometimes things that seem to only exist in stories can creep into reality in unexpected ways. Are you sure that when you turn off the sound, everything around you will still be normal as before? Or is there something watching you? Either way, always remember that these are just stories, or at least we want to believe that they are. If you like moments of suspense, tension, and breathlessness, don't forget to follow me so you don't miss the next stories. And next time, when you come back, make sure you are ready, because what awaits you may be even scarier than you thought. See you again if you still have the courage to continue listening.